My name is Mia. It has been a year since I married my husband, Ethan, and we're getting close to our second anniversary. Ethan and I started dating back in college, and we've always had a good relationship. Since our university was far from home, we lived in a small rented apartment away from our families. That gave us lots of time to be together, whether during long breaks or just on weekends. We also worked part-time jobs and went on fun trips whenever we could. After finishing school, we both got jobs in Florida. 2 years later, Ethan proposed, and we got married. I was so happy, but there was one problem: Ethan's mom. She was a very strong-willed woman, and I could tell from the first time we met. The first time I visited Ethan's parents' house was after we decided to get married. We were sitting in the living room chatting when Ethan's mom suddenly said, "Ethan, could you bring some tea and snacks?" Ethan replied, "I'll make coffee too," and went to the kitchen. Left alone with his mom, I felt really nervous and stayed quiet. Then she asked, "Mia, I heard you and Ethan met in college. Does that mean you're as smart as him?" She stared at me with a sharp look. I felt uncomfortable, but I stayed calm. "Yes, that's true, though Ethan was always better in school than me," I said, trying to steer the conversation by complimenting him. She laughed and said, "Well, of course, just by looking at you, I can tell you're not the sharpest." I was shocked. I couldn't figure out if she didn't like me or if she was just being rude, but I stayed quiet since it was our first meeting. Then she added, "Anyway, you two will probably break up one day." I froze, unsure what to say. When Ethan came back, he asked, "What were you two talking about?" His mom replied casually, "Oh, nothing much. I was just asking about how you two met." Then she changed the topic completely. Her sudden change in attitude made me uneasy. Even after we left, I kept wondering why she would say those things. Did I do something wrong? I didn't know, but it upset me a lot. From then on, she never said rude things in front of Ethan, but she kept telling me we would break up. As our wedding got closer, I couldn't take it anymore. I told Ethan everything. "Ethan, your mom has been telling me to break up with you since we first met," I admitted. Ethan looked surprised. "What? That can't be true. My mom wouldn't say that." He didn't believe me at first, but when he saw me crying, he realized it was true. "I'm sorry I didn't notice. I'll talk to her," he promised. The next day, Ethan called his mom and said, "Don't say anything mean to Mia again. I'm marrying her no matter what." After that, his mom stopped making rude comments, and we had a lovely wedding. However, after we got married, she started acting up again. Even when Ethan was there, she'd say things like, "Why can't you handle simple tasks? How do you plan to start a family like this?" She also expected me to help around the house but wouldn't tell me what to do. If I asked, she ignored me, and if I did something on my own, she'd say, "I didn't ask you to do that. Use your head." Her behavior made me want to cry, but I held it in for Ethan's sake. Every time she yelled at me, Ethan would stand up for me. "Mom, stop it. If you keep this up, we'll leave," he'd say firmly. She would grumble but eventually stop. Ethan told me, "You don't have to go to my parents' house if it's too hard." And that's how we managed to get through it together. As someone who had just joined the family, I really wanted to get along with my mother-in-law and earn her approval. I didn't want to cause any problems or overreact. For my husband's sake, I wanted to become a daughter-in-law she would accept and build a better relationship with her, even though I knew it might be difficult. During our New Year's visit to my in-laws, as expected, Ethan stepped in to help me, so I didn't worry about my mother-in-law as much. After we got home from their house, Ethan apologized again. "I'm sorry, Mia, for my mom's behavior," he said. "It's okay." "Thanks for always standing up for me, Ethan," I replied, grateful for him. Ethan smiled and said, "I'm going to take a bath," and went to change. After he came out of the bath, we talked about our work schedules for the new year. Then Ethan said, I might have more business trips soon. It surprised me because it came out of nowhere. He had business trips every few months before, so I didn't think too much of it and said, "I see. That'll be tough." A few days later, in the evening, he told me, "The business trip dates are set. It's next weekend." He had just returned from work when he mentioned it. It was the first time he had a business trip planned so suddenly, so I was a little shocked. "There's an important deal that might happen," he explained. I couldn't help but admire how seriously he took his work. Since I also had my own job, I didn't feel lonely just because he'd be away. In fact, knowing how hard he worked made me want to do the same. "I understand. Just don't overwork yourself, okay?" I said. "Thanks," Ethan replied. "I'm going to take a bath," he added, taking off his shirt as he went to the bathroom. I picked up the shirt he had left lying around, feeling a bit annoyed, and was going to take it to the washing machine. But then I noticed something, a faint lipstick stain on the chest area. A sudden, uncomfortable thought crossed my mind. I hurriedly stuffed the shirt into the washing machine, trying to push the thought away. No way. Ethan would never do something like that. I tried to tell myself it wasn't true and quickly went back to the living room. Almost like it was planned, his phone, which he had left on the couch, vibrated. My gut feeling got stronger, and I couldn't help but glance at the phone screen, even though I knew it was wrong. The name on the screen was Ever. Maybe it was just a work colleague, I thought. But it could also mean something else, maybe an affair. I decided to answer the call, even though I knew I shouldn't. "Hello?" I said. "Oh, why?" a young woman's voice stammered before hanging up quickly. It was clearly the voice of a young woman. If it was just a colleague, why would she hang up like that? Something felt very wrong. I started searching through his phone, and that's when I found messages between him and someone who was obviously more than just a friend. They were planning a trip together for next weekend, the same weekend Ethan had mentioned his business trip. "It's not a business trip. This is definitely an affair," I thought. I felt surprisingly calm as I realized the truth. I transferred the messages and photos from his phone to mine, then sat there waiting for him to come out of the bath. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry either. I just kept thinking about how we ended up here, and my mind was full of questions. Eventually, Ethan finished his bath and came out, saying as usual, that was a good bath. "So, where's your business trip next weekend?" I asked him. Ethan didn't seem nervous at all. He replied, "I'm going to LA. I'll bring you a souvenir." That's when it hit me. I couldn't believe it. I had had enough. LA? That's not true, is it? I asked calmly. His face froze, looking confused. Was it ever? She sounds like a young girl, I continued. You've got a lot of nerve lying about the business trip just so you can go on vacation instead. You looked at my phone without asking? My husband, Ryan, snapped back. I was a bit surprised. Instead of being nervous or apologizing about the affair, Ryan was now scolding me. I didn't go snooping, I said calmly. Your phone rang, and it said Ever. It was marked urgent, so I picked up, thinking it was work, but a woman answered and hung up right away. It seemed suspicious. That doesn't give you the right to check my phone, he shot back. At that moment, I gave up. I had hoped, even just a little, that he might deny the affair or explain himself, but instead of defending himself, Ryan was blaming me for questioning him. I'm done. Let's get a divorce, I said firmly. Ryan froze for a moment, then muttered, Fine, let's get a divorce if that's what you want. His words hit me like a brick. My chest hurt, not physically, but it was the worst pain I had ever felt. Holding back tears, I turned to leave the room, but Ryan stopped me. My mom's coming over tomorrow, he said. What? Why? This has nothing to do with her, I replied. Ryan didn't answer. He just walked past me and went to his room. I couldn't understand what was happening. Tears of frustration and sadness welled up, and all the emotions from his betrayal came pouring out. The next day, his mother, Mrs. Harper, arrived. I ignored her and sat down in a chair. "Mia, you've heard of Bella, haven't you?" Mrs. Harper asked with a smug smile. "What do you mean? What's this about Bella?" I asked sharply. She leaned in closer and said, "You already know, don't you? Bella is the girl Ryan's been seeing." "What?" I asked, stunned. She continued as if it was no big deal. "I introduced Bella to Ryan myself. She's a lovely girl from my yoga class. Honestly, I don't need a daughter-in-law like you who's completely useless." Her words made my world spin. I turned to Ryan for some kind of support, but he didn't even look at me. He just stood there silently. I felt my anger boil over. "Fine," I said coldly. "I'll take everything I bought with me." Mrs. Harper laughed mockingly. "I don't need your used, dirty things," she sneered. I stood tall and said, "Actually, this house, the furniture, the appliances, everything is in my name." Her face turned pale. "What are you talking about? That's impossible. Ryan didn't contribute a dime to this place." Ryan finally spoke up. "Mom, it's true. This house and everything in it were bought by Mia's parents." Mrs. Harper looked shocked. "Are you really giving up this beautiful house?" she asked him. Ryan sighed. "We have no choice. Come on, let's pack." Mrs. Harper reluctantly started helping Ryan pack his things. I watched them silently, then warned, "Leave quickly, or I'll call the police." Within a short time, they had packed and left. As for Bella, it turned out she had no idea Ryan was married. She came to me to apologize, ended things with Ryan, and even blocked his number. Ryan had nowhere to go, so he moved back to his parents' house. But by then, rumors had spread in their neighborhood about how his mother encouraged him to cheat, and he got caught. Ryan was too embarrassed to even step outside. As for me, I finally took the peaceful vacation I had dreamed of, traveling with my parents. They were worried about me, but I reassured them that I had moved on. I might be done with the idea of marriage for now, but I still believe family is important. From now on, I'll focus on people who truly value and care about me.